Well, Garrison, we had talked on Thursday. Not a lot of new news has happened. I know there's some things that we had met and we wanted to talk about. First is really wanted to talk about Larry Johnson. He there's some rumors that unfortunately he might be holding the Ohio State football program a little bit hostage as we head into the spring. There are rumors that he is still undecided whether or not he wants to return for this year, which I feel like that's a decision he should have already made, considering that spring ball starts in less than a month at this point. Actually, it's about 1 month exactly. So, what are your thoughts on this saga? And do you think he should make up his mind to leave, or do you think he should stay another year?
He can get gone.
Yeah.
Early on in the season, I was really upset because I was upset that Jim Knowles didn't, as we talked before, make sure that LJ knew that he was his subordinate. Same thing with Ryan Day. And probably a lot of that has to do with the amount of pool, I guess you could say, that LJ has. I mean, people forget LJ was the assistant head coach to Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
He was that. So I think he actually has a game winner. He's 1-0.
Yeah, so, he did that when during the COVID season because Day had COVID, so he had to coach the Michigan State game.
Mm-hmm. So I think there's that, man. I think we just lost his heir apparent to Texas, and I don't blame him at all. That hurt. And so I think it's gotten to a point now, I'm not really and this isn't about ageism or anything. It's nothing like that. But once you get up in age, sometimes people stuck in their ways.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this before on the show that Larry has the tendency when you're that high in age and you are still coaching college football, it's just the nature of the beast that other teams are going to use that as a negative recruiting pitch.
Mm-hmm.
There are programs out there, hey, he's over 70. He's not going to stay there the length of your time at Ohio State. Why the hell would you go there? Why wouldn't you come here? We've got this sweet NIL deal in this college, and our defensive line coach isn't going to leave. So, that's been happening for years. And that's honestly part of the reason why Ohio State hasn't gotten a 5-star recruit on the defensive line since JTT and Jack Sawyer. I think that, as you mentioned, we saw what happened with the power struggle between him and Knowles and who eventually came out on that. And quite frankly, there shouldn't have been a power struggle at all. I mean, it should have been Knowles' defense from the start. I mean, it should be Trish's defense from the start here. So, I'm interested to see how that dynamic works. And maybe that's what Larry's waiting to see. Maybe he's waiting to see, hey, am I going to be able to work with this guy and get what I want, which, is most important to me? Or is it going to be his defense and I'm not going to have as much power as I did in the last defensive coordinator regime? I think that might be what he's waiting on. But, bro, it's February 17th. Like, get a move on. Like, you need to have some conversations, some tough conversations, and either decide you're coming here for another year or you're out. And bottom line, it needs to be a one more year stay and you're out because we can't do this every year. You can't do this every year. His time's passed. He's a great defensive line coach for a really long time. But at this point, they need to go in a different direction.
Yeah, and, like you said, we are far removed from Ryan Day's first class when he got Jack Sawyer and JTT. People forget. Those two were they were both top 5 recruits in the nation.
Funny part not just on the defensive line, just total.
Yeah. Funny part is, what's his name? Went to USC. Flaked. Corey.
Bear Alexander.
Yeah, like he flaked. He was the number 1 recruit overall and number 1 ahead of JTT and Jack Sawyer. So which is a funnier conversation for all the flack that those two have gotten compared to him. Weirdly, no one talks about him, but no, it's time to go. Again, like you said, this year-to-year thing it's tiring. And truth be told, if you have the
you were thinking of Corey Foreman. That's who you were thinking of.
Corey Foreman. Thank you. That's a discussion for another day.
He ended up number 3 overall in the composite because Quinn Ewers and JTT were top, and Quinn had committed to Ohio State at that point, and obviously we know how that ended.
It's a bump, baby. But I truly believe, man, if you have the fans complaining about a position coach, you know there's a problem. Well, I mean, Ryan Day says every year he asks these 3 questions: is it the coaching, is it the scheme, or is it the players? Well, I can tell you right now, over the last few years, the D-line production has gone down, and it hasn't been as consistently great as we saw prior, the years prior to Jack Sawyer and JTT.
Yep.
So it's not the players, because clearly when Jim got to run his system more, the guys played better. It clearly wasn't the scheme because it worked. So who's next?
And that's kind of that's the key question. That's actually the question Tyler asked.
Mm-hmm.
Who would we want as Larry's replacement? When, as you mentioned at the top, ideally we had his replacement in house. He went ahead and went to Texas. So,
yeah.
You know, in the immediate term, if Larry doesn't come back, I just assume Patricia will just take over those duties. I mean, he's been a defensive line coach before in the NFL. He would probably just take them over to start. And then next year you kind of go with a nationwide search and see who you can get. I don't really have a good name off the top of my head right now as far as who I would want to bring in, just because I haven't started making lists, because Larry, he's like Michael Myers. Like, he keeps coming back when you don't want him necessarily to. So I'm afraid that he's somehow going to hold on for 2 or 3 more years, even though, like, I know logically that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But do you have a name in mind who you'd want to have him have be his replacement?
How much longer does Cameron Hayward want to play?
That's an interesting question. His contract goes for another couple years. Like, they just re-signed him at the beginning of last season. So, and he's still playing at a pretty good level. So I assume he's going to play for another 2 years. So that might be a little bit too long of a wait.
That good, man?
He's, because he was really good, and that's a Jim Tressel boy. That's not even an Urban Meyer boy. Like, that's Jim Tressel era.
Yeah, I mean, actually, fun fact, I can't remember the other two. No, the other two was it Watt, Cameron Hayward, and there was a defensive end, really good player for Iowa that season. They all went in the first 15 picks.
Yeah.
I remember his name. He had dreads.
Claiborne.
But no, again, like
Claiborne was the Iowa defensive.
Claiborne, yeah, man, they were
Adrian Claiborne.
But I just, when it comes to replacements, I would want someone that's around the James Laurinaitis type of guy. I want a guy who has played at the program, who knows the program, has played at that position, and can talk to the kids. Like it's James Laurinaitis. I trust him to be what he is as a football. The guy was an elite football player for Ohio State. Had some really good years with the Los Angeles Rams or the St. Louis Rams, and I really believe you look at what we've been doing on the recruiting trail lately at that position. I think linebacker was one of those positions over the recent years Ohio State hasn't been really elite at, which I think is taking a flip. It's flipping right now. It is. I mean, later in the show we can discuss some recruiting news. I also wanted to talk about Sincere with you, but who's locked in a visit date. But I don't know yet. But the main thing is LJ has to go soon. That's the main thing.
He does. And you know what? If they don't end up, if they do end up going out of the program to make a hire, which I think should be something that they look at doing, I would actually be okay with taking Randall Joyner. He's actually the defensive line coach at Ole Miss. He helped coach Walter Nolan. He helped, He's, Walter Nolan's probably going to be a first-round pick coming in the NFL this year. He's, he's got previous playing experience. He played at SMU. He was their defensive line coach as well. He's one of the top, 15 paid coaches in college football already. So they think he's going. They think he's a really good coach. Ole Miss's defensive line was not the reason why they didn't make the college football playoff this year. So if I had to throw a name out there, that's probably where I would go. I mean, in 2023, when Ole Miss when they won 11 games, so before this past year, they led the SEC in turnover margin, and the defensive line ranked 19th nationally in sacks. So that's pretty good, and then give him all the recruiting advantages that you have at Ohio State. The facilities, give him a bump in pay, and see what he can do. I see Phil coming in here with what's John Simon doing. That's not a bad name either.
That's not a bad name. Ohio State has some really rare, there's names that Ohio State has on the defensive line over the last, let's say, 20 years of guys that you could literally go back to and say, yeah, you might not be doing it in the NFL, but you're someone that's highly respected by the fan base, highly respected by the program, and we will gladly have you back. I think John Simon, that's a good name. What? Yeah. Let me know. Tell me what you think about this. And everyone else in the comments, please do the same. So Alan Clark was a grad assistant for us, right?
Yeah.
And then you go and do the smart thing. You take if Texas is offering you a position job, you take it. So he smartly does that. What if LJ were to leave next year? You say, hey, Allen, how would you feel about being the D-line coach in co-DC?
I still think he'd probably stick at Texas.
You think he would? All right, so you think he would take that over the whole D-line and Okay.
I do, just because.
Do you ask him? Do you ask?
I guarantee you he's going to float that idea in front of Texas for a raise. He's going to use it one way or another. There's going to be some agent leverage there. So I would think he would stick at Texas just because their premier program as well. I mean, the recruiting base in Texas, if Texas was really trying to lock down the state of Texas, they could do a really good job of it. You don't really need to go anywhere else for talent. There's that good of kids in Texas. Now, obviously, there are some really good players in Florida, really good players in Ohio, California. There's great players all over the place, but Texas is one of those recruiting fertile grounds where he can just turn around and find a defensive lineman in his backyard.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll tell you what. Clearly, right now, Ryan Day is all about paying his friends. So,
well, you have to also consider the fact that the athletic department had a $38 million operating deficit this past year, so that spending might come down. And that's probably part of the reason why they let Jim Knowles go. They didn't pony up for that $3.1 million. They only offered $275, or I think maybe $285 was the top offer. So
that offer Penn State gave, I'm not mad that Ohio State didn't offer.
No,
I'm not mad about it. That's a lot of guala. So
it's a lot, and you know what? That's perfectly fine.